Hello and welcome to the Ideas Factory. Wish you all a very happy 75th year of India's independence and hope this year turns out to be a good one for all of us, actually, all across the world. Very warm welcome to you, Harsh.
Hello, Naghma, and happy Independence Day to you as well.
Thank you so much. Harsh, we all heard the Prime Minister's Independence Day speech today, and also in this week that just went by, we also saw him chairing the UNSC meet, which was the first for an Indian Prime Minister, which itself was historic. And actually, there have been many firsts in terms of foreign policy during this government's tenure. When he spoke when he chaired the UNSC meet, he also laid out about five principles of, or a map, the global maritime security map, and a statement came out, which was also the first time on matters of maritime security. There was a bit of a tension because of the blatant illegal Chinese activity in the South China Sea that the world has been witnessing. Looking at all this, the Prime Minister chairing the meet and bringing out these points, what does it really mean for India? And also, when we look at his Independence Day speech today and the key points that he highlighted, what does it really show about India's road ahead in the world?
I think, Naghma, putting it all together, you do see that India is really now focused on the China question. That the ifs and buts are gone. I think there is a recognition that the challenge that we are facing is a long-term one, and perhaps it's a challenge also in terms of the global order. That it is not simply about India; it is also about the way global order is evolving post-COVID, and how India needs to position itself. So when he talked to the Indians from the ramparts of the Red Fort, in his Independence Day address, he mentioned twin challenges of terrorism and expansionism, clearly very directed at India's two neighbors, that pose this two-front dilemma for India. That on the one hand, you have a nation that is still to reconcile itself with its own existence and the existence of India, and continues to use terrorism as an instrument of state policy against India. And India has been struggling to find an adequate response to it. And I'm sure we'll talk about Afghanistan later, but as Afghanistan again underscores that the issue of terrorism remains a very potent one in South Asia, perhaps a very potent one around the world, and India will have to figure out a way of cordoning itself off from the negative externalities emerging from Afghanistan and from Pakistan. And on the other hand, we have a situation on our borders with China. Now that is a global order issue, because clearly China is not only challenging India, but China is challenging the world. In more ways than one. And so when he says expansionism, this unilateral desire by the Chinese Communist Party to change the status quo on the ground, be it Himalayas or be it the South China, East China Seas, I think those questions remain in the air, both for India, for India's neighbors, for India's partners. So I think for Prime Minister, it was right to address them, from the Red Fort this Independence Day, because clearly these challenges will remain with us. They have been with us for a while, and they will continue to be with us. So what is India doing for it? I think there you see the UNSC response, a UNSC chairing of the meeting by the Prime Minister himself. I think there India is, and the kind of position that India took, the 5-point formula that India put forth, it was a very interesting articulation of the way in which India was signaling its role as a responsible global stakeholder in the maritime space, and also challenging a country like China without naming it, when it said that we need to respect, our nations need to respect international law when it comes to the resolution of disputes in the maritime space, something clearly China has not done. So I think when you look at the larger rubric of what India presented, why Prime Minister went there, maritime security being one of the most important issues for India's presidency throughout this month of August at the UN Security Council, I think all that underscores a new resolve in India that yes, China is a neighbor. China will have to manage very delicately, but there should not be any compunction in taking on China when need arises, because that's the only way you can build coalitions. That's the only way you can build partnerships. That's the only way you can survive, or you can move ahead pursuing your interests in partnership with others. And that's what the message from the UN Security Council was, be it on resolution of disputes, be it also very interestingly on infrastructure, where the Prime Minister pointed out that maritime infrastructure cannot create debt burdens. It will have to be financially sustainable. It should be financially sustainable. Again, directed at one particular country. And again, the target, I think, was very clear. But also framing this idea that ultimately maritime space is a very important one for globalization, for countries that are developing, for countries that are relatively poor. For them, power-based realities on the maritime space cannot cloud the other reality that a lot of the world will not prosper economically unless there is a shift, there is a wider consensus in the global community about some shared values and some shared norms. So I think that's the way perhaps India will take it forward. But the message increasingly from New Delhi is becoming clearer.
Yes, and India's worst fears are actually coming true as far as Afghanistan is concerned. India had voiced these concerns earlier, and now we hear that the Taliban have almost reached the gates of Kabul. They are just on the outskirts, and with the fall of Mazar-e-Sharif, they kind of control the whole of northern Afghanistan. They can very well control the supply of food and water and everything. So Kabul is the last city standing. But do you think there are questions? Big questions arising here. First of all, there are talks of the American abandonment, and now the extra troops that President Biden has decided to send in. How will that help? Of course, Trump has pointed out that this is a big failure. There is also the question that will Ashraf Ghani hold on to power in Afghanistan? Will he be able to protect Kabul? And all the talks that took place in Doha, was that the talks with Taliban? How do you see that now? Or was that a big failure?
No, I think it is very interesting. It at multiple levels. It's heartbreaking. I think looking at it from outside, when you look at your Afghan friends, and families and women and children facing a very dark next few days and months ahead. But I think it is also remarkable how prescient India was when it warned that, look, none of this rosy picture that the world was presenting that certain sections in the West in particular were presenting, that somehow Taliban have evolved to a new phase where they are going to compromise and they are not going to use force. Almost all of those assumptions have fallen by the wayside. What we are looking at is a brutal assault on Afghanistan by a group of fighters with the help of some state actors to take power through the use of force. There is no other way to put it. And I don't think even today they are interested in any kind of political reconciliation, because they know that they have won. I don't have any doubt that we will see a power transition very soon in whatever form. It can be brutal, or it can be more mellow with the Ghani government itself withdrawing. But I think the larger message from this is for those ordinary Afghans who believed in certain values that I think the rest of the world was telling them to believe in, like democracy, freedom, human rights, minority rights, women's rights. All of them have fallen by the wayside. Today, no one is talking about it. There is utter silence in the international community, because who will bell the cat? Who will do what is the big question. And this is, I think, not only a big failure of the Biden administration, but I think this will haunt Mr. Biden now for the rest of his political life, which is, I think, another 3 years if he remains in office. This is going to be very dramatic from American point of view, because it is reminding people of Vietnam. It is reminding people of a gross failure, of a gross political misjudgment. And how is it that even 2 weeks back, Mr. Biden in a press conference was saying Afghan National Army is very strong and with institutions and they will stand tall, and there's nothing to worry about. So I think what we are looking at is a pretty dismal picture from whichever aspect you look at it. I think Americans have they can move on. India will countries like India are. I mean, we are no longer India of 2021 is not the India of 1990s. We will manage. But I think what you feel bad today is for those Afghans who believed in certain ideals which the international community has completely failed to stand up by with them. And I think that's the challenge that will haunt the world now, because if you can't stop Taliban, what prevents other such organizations, other such groups of thugs or extremists to come together and and challenge global norms, challenge societies, challenge normative values? So I think those questions are much bigger. But clearly, at the moment, the focus is on Afghanistan, and one can only hope and pray that things do not turn out to be as brutal as perhaps they have been in the past. But whatever we are hearing, I do not see any evolution in Taliban. I do not see any change in the way they are thinking about their other stakeholders. And I think I don't see in them that kind of a leadership that will lead us to believe that a new Afghanistan can be created out of the ruins of what was achieved over the last 2 decades.
Actually, the reports that are coming out very clearly, show us that all the gains that were made in the last 20 years will have to be probably rolled back, be in terms of human rights, be in terms of women's rights. We've also heard that some women going to offices and universities were asked to go back, and all they're demanding now is to for the women to wear hijab and cover themselves in a certain way. So all these things are coming out when they still have not reached Kabul. They're on the outskirts of Kabul. Of course, Jalalabad has fallen to the Taliban. So there are big questions and very tragic picture coming out of Afghanistan. Harsh, a couple of our viewers have sent in questions related to Afghanistan. So let me first take those and then we move on, because Anand Sangameshwaran has asked a similar question. With the Taliban gaining momentum in Afghanistan, what can India do to protect various infrastructural gifts like the Salma Dam? Also, if Taliban captures Kabul, what would be India's way of dealing with them? And Akshay Sinha has also asked that, realistically speaking, what are India's options in Afghanistan? Did we err by putting all eggs in the basket of the democratically elected government in Afghanistan? Is it time to reconsider our position?
Well, this has been a persistent debate in India about, that engage with the Taliban or not to engage with the Taliban. I frankly find it a bit esoteric, because ultimately you can only engage with Taliban if they are interested in engaging with you. At the moment, they have given no such sign, because they are first concentrating on winning the battle through the use of force. The second aspect is that India, of course, would want to deal with anyone, all the stakeholders in Afghanistan. But it cannot be a situation that India is reduced to dealing only with the Taliban. Taliban, if they are not interested in political reconciliation, then what is there to deal with them? I mean, what are you going to achieve by dealing with them? So I think the questions here are much larger than engagement or not or disengagement with the Taliban. I think the questions are about the future of Afghanistan and what it means for Indian security. And I think India's points have always been that unless there is political reconciliation in Afghanistan that brings a stable political structure to Afghanistan, Afghanistan will face a future of chaos and civil war. And I think even if Taliban, gain complete control over Kabul, I do not see a possibility that there is no civil war. I do not see a possibility that suddenly we will see governance from Taliban. What we are going to see is again a brutal governance structure that they are perpetrating in the parts of the territory that they are governing, and marginalization of their political opponents, which they have already done. So clearly, I think unless there is a political reconciliation process in the offing, which India can support, what is it that India can do is not clear to me, because clearly India had invested hoping that those capacities could be used to build in Afghanistan for the future of ordinary Afghans. But that's clearly not the agenda of the Taliban. If the agenda of the Taliban is to go back to its medieval ideology, then I don't think that anyone can do anything, frankly. India can try to engage with the Taliban once they assume power formally, but I don't think the rest of the world, including India, would be ready to recognize a Taliban regime which has gone and taken Afghanistan through the brutal use of force. And if the present trends continue, I think not only India but other countries would also be thinking twice about what to do with the Taliban. So I think there are bigger questions about Taliban at the moment, about Afghanistan, about the future of minorities, about the future of political opposition in the country, that one has to think about before you come to actually protecting Indian investments there.
Absolutely. The picture that's coming out of Afghanistan right now is very, very dismal. We are told that there are long queues in front of embassies for of people who want to get out of Afghanistan, but now it's really, really difficult in terms of the airfares, in terms of countries issuing visas who are actually letting the Afghans come into their countries. So all those problems for the common people who are trapped there, and there is a feeling of abandonment. Harsh, I would also like your comment on the foreign policy survey that has been conducted by ORF, which is very interesting. What are the important key takeaways? Because this, the year that has gone by and this year we have seen changes because of the COVID-19, which were unprecedented and were disruption in the world order, in the supply chain. And there are many, many challenges. It also exposed the weaknesses of various organized systems of governance. And India has been trying to navigate these challenges. Now, in terms of India's foreign policy or India's position in the world, and on various issues, what does this survey really point out? What do the youth of India feel? Because the survey is more about the young people and what do they feel has been India's stand, or which way should India go. So what were the key takeaways?
Thank you, Naghma. This has been an important undertaking on our on the part of ORF, because we want to also make this an annual affair now. There has been the data on polling data has been very, very scarce in India. And therefore, we want to contribute to that and generate some data points on this issue. But I think what this survey has been actually, this was done before the second wave, and this is a survey of urban youth. And their perceptions and their understanding of major foreign policy challenges India faces, how the government has responded to them, and what, in their view, might be the future of multilateralism and globalization. And I think this is perhaps the first survey that talks about multilateralism and globalization, and in this sense, in a survey format. And what we gleaned from this is, at the moment, or at least when the survey was conducted, that was from December to February, there was a lot of support for governments in various initiatives on the foreign policy front. There was the urban youth was largely supportive, because I think the urban youth is largely aspirational. They want India to do well on the global stage. They are also very optimistic about India's future, which is also, again, very interesting. And I think there is a certain clarity about the threats that India faces at this point. So you had, for example, being very big on the agenda. China is one of the biggest challenges, and India's urban youth recognizes that. And what is also interesting is that there is an argument in the survey that has gained a lot of support, saying that in case India faces even more challenges from China, India should be free to disband. India should have no compunction moving towards the US. So there is this larger sentiment that China challenge is so huge and so big that India should be thinking through some of its older assumptions. There is also this idea in terms of neighborhood, that India should engage more with its neighborhood, invest more diplomatically, except apart from Pakistan, but other neighbors. There is a feeling of genuine warmth. There is a feeling of that India should be investing more. And by and large, on multilateralism, interestingly, at a time when multilateral order is under pressure, urban Indians want the government to be more multilateral, to engage with multilateral platforms, and to work with other partners. So I think, all in all, this is a survey that tells you a story about an urban India, an urban youth that is looking at the future optimistically, and that want Indian government to help India take its rightful place in the comity of nations. And so I think it's a very optimistic and aspirational survey, aspirational numbers that we are getting from this survey. And one hopes that this survey will generate more debate, more academic work, and as we take it forward every year from now on, we hope that that we can increase the sample size, we can increase, we can make it more diverse in terms of the questions we ask, and we can we can make it more. We can make it much broader than simply urban youth. But we have started on this journey this year, and we hope that this journey is fruitful for us and for those who engage with us on this survey.
Absolutely, this is the first of the surveys, and we hope it will be an annual feature. So, in this survey, very interestingly, urban youth is looking at the future of India very optimistically. Thank you so much, Harsh, for putting it in context for us and telling us what are the key points of this survey. Thank you a lot for joining on this episode of the Ideas Factory. We will see you next week.